Good evening and welcome to another MTV Community Forum. I'm your host, Byron Campbell, and our co-host, of course, Chris Diali.
Good evening, viewers, listeners across all the various platforms. Again, we're happy to be here on a Wednesday to have a chit-chat and to talk interesting things in agriculture tonight.
Chris, not just agriculture, but we have a very interesting program coming up. We have a sustainable soil management specialist here with us to talk a lot about climate change matters and more sustainable agriculture and
Climate smart.
and all those things. But critical area because right now with climate change, we can't take things for granted. So stay with us for the second part of the program. Chris, there's a lot happening, but the first thing on my mind, Chris, is, and we have touched on the subject many times before, is what's happening in the Middle East. What's happening? Not President Trump visited the Middle East, but what's happening in Gaza in particular, Chris. And I mean, there's a lot happening outside of that, and so not all news give us updates on this, but it is the slaughter or the genocide continues unabated, you know. And what we see now is, I don't know how you can have more devastation and more bombings. You know, I don't know what they're bombing. Everything seems to be in pieces already. Children, I mean, they're bombing the food distribution centers, they're bombing the hospitals, they're bombing, I don't know. And the world is there looking on, and the children, and this starvation as a weapon of war. I mean, it's contrary to all the laws of humankind, human beings, and it continues.
Well, you know, Byron, it's interesting that President Trump is deciding to visit, and the Israelis have upped their bombing and killing of people in Gaza when it seemed to have subsided somewhat.
Yeah.
And that is instructive to understand what is going on there. From where I sit, there is just no excuse what Israel is doing, and you have to ask yourself the question, how would terrorism in the world ever end? When you slaughter people in this way and you do that, and you have countries like the US and the European Union to some degree supporting Israel, and in this modern era, none of these countries have, I don't want to use the word, the intestinal fortitude to give Israel some sort of check and tell them stop what they're doing, and we just sit by and watch the slaughter continue. So you have to question what it is we're really doing in the world when we talk about the UN and all of these agencies are supposed to protect small vulnerable people, countries and people, and we just allowing this to continue. So it's
just sad, particularly when you see the images of the children. You know, you wonder.
There's no other way to explain.
But it's important to bring this to the fore, and I mean, I think every day governments should be speaking out, and even ours and others, you know, to
people who
Chris,
supply them, they're doing nothing.
Chris, as we talk about our government, a major press conference today, the government, the Ministry of Health, unveiling, the official unveiling of the Project Polaris, talking about the 84-acre site at Hopevale to be a medical city. A 250 bed smart research hospital with top expertise, latest technology, offering specialized services, comprehensive outpatient services, embodying cutting-edge training, retirement and medical tourism. I mean, everything you could think about that's ideal was unveiled today. I don't know.
Let me start off by saying that I'm going to compliment the government for heading in for a project like that. Our health system has not been the best, but it's not the worst as it exists now. Based on the strategy, we're into primary health care, and that's the major focus for us.
Yeah.
All the different constituencies and parishes we have in Grenada. So it is not the worst, but it is still not the best. And medical care is not cheap. So it is an expensive venture. However, I am of the view that this city that we talk about, and if we get it physically on the ground, I have a problem with the 84 acres because that's one of the most fertile land, and probably when our guests come, we're going to ask him about that.
Land use. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Land use.
Yeah.
And but outside of that, we're going to be paying Mount Sinai as consultants for this project. 12.5 million over the next 5 years, US, which is about 30 million EC dollars.
For advice.
For advice.
Yes.
And give advice technically and otherwise.
Yeah.
And probably using their name as well.
They use the word affiliation in other words, we can, whatever we do here, it be an affiliation with Mount Sinai. So we're paying for that name.
Yeah, so branding.
Branding, yes, yes.
But I still am concerned by one of two things. Our current health system suffers from labor shortages.
Yeah.
Whether it's nurses, doctors.
The last number the minister announced was just over 100 positions were there to be filled.
Right. So we had a facility built in Wharf.
Yes.
Big facility, nice facility that we still can't adequately resource from a human resource point of view, an equipment point of view. And if I were to stay on equipment, one of the problems we have with our general hospital is maintenance of equipment and how we're going to handle that and what the cost is going to be like. Because a facility like that is going to require a robust maintenance program to keep it viable. So that is something that, there are a lot of questions, more questions than answers as this unfolds. And hopefully we will get some answers.
Hopefully, Chris.
I am concerned about the private hospital institutions in Grenada and what the effect is going to be on them. Some of them have invested millions of dollars in equipment, and we don't know what this is.
We were also told today that there's an agreement signed with Nigerian government. I think 9 health practitioners, health aides, whoever, I don't know. But I thought we would strengthen that medical cooperation with Cuba in particular, because there's scope for strengthening that. How has African practitioners worked out in Grenada? Yeah. You can answer that question, Chris?
I can, but we have thousands of Grenadian doctors out there. I didn't hear talking about the diaspora and what's going to happen there and so on.
Yeah.
So
Chris, what's coming up also is a lot about our CBI program. And we have one local country who has chosen not to be part of the CBI program, Citizens by Investment program, and that's in Vincent. And PM Gonzalez has been talking about it. He's opposed to it. Not only opposed to these programs in principle, he says they are not unsustainable. In fact, he says it's reckless to run your country's finance on selling passports and citizenships. And he draws attention with the U.S., the action of the U.S. and Europe and other countries that are putting restrictions on these passports holders, on these entries. And he says it's just a matter of time before it collapses. What's your take?
Why doesn't Prime Minister Gonzalez talk about the CBI programs that Canada, the U.S. and the English Isle Man and all of them have? I'm not hearing him talking about that and saying there's good collapse as well.
But they're not dependent on it. That's the difference, Chris.
But you can't tell high net worth people where to put their money. You cannot control that.
True.
And they will decide where they want to put their money. And if certain countries offer programs, as we call them CBI programs, with other alternatives as to how to invest their money, why not? You may argue that some of these programs may have attracted some people that are questionable, but in everything else in life, you will get people who are questionable. Grenada's program, for example, have a rigid security checkpoint, but even that, you could get somebody today who meets all the criteria for the security check, and tomorrow they engage in something that you can't control that.
But are they sustainable? I think that's the question. To what extent? You see this fluctuating income. Last year we made what? $500 million. This year we scheduled to make less than $200 million.
And we may make more, we may make less. Yeah. But that is the nature of any sector that you go in. Some days it's up, some days it's down. I believe that at the end of the day,
I have some concerns about them.
Well, you would. Everybody must have concerns. And at the end of the day,
I have a proposal, Chris. I would like to see some of those income go into the agricultural sector, food security sector. In the past, they've all gone to the tourism and other related sectors.
Well, the IMA is now expanding the reach.
So why before we never had any of these resources going into the agricultural sector?
Because agriculture is a high-risk area. We don't.
Food is high risk. Yeah.
Well, we don't have projects.
I have to threaten you here, Chris.
No, hold on.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me finish.
Okay.
The tourism sector would have gotten the brunt of the money because those projects. No, we have monies that have gone to bridges and infrastructural work.
Okay.
Through the funds.
Okay.
But tourism projects would have gotten a lion's share because those projects are predictable in terms of risk management and what happens. Tourism is highly dependent on outside forces, so that is a major risk. Agriculture is a lot more risky. Even the local banks and the local financial institutions are hesitant because the projects coming out of agriculture doesn't seem to look to how to mitigate the risks that are there. So hence, I would suspect some of the funds from IMA have not gone. Remember, in the Citizenship by Investment Program, IMA, you're going to people outside here to a project, sell them a project to say, put your money here.
Yeah,
and
there's risk, there's risk, yeah.
Yes, so
there's risk, but
saying.
they're rich, even though it...
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So you have to structure.
But you'd
support.
you'd support some of these finances going to agriculture related.
I have no problem.
Okay, fine.
I even said sports. We could still put it in sports. We could put it in agriculture. We could put it in areas in ICT.
That's fine. Chris, hurricane season. It's on. It's coming. 2 weeks. 1 week. The projection is above average prediction in terms of named storms, hurricanes, hurricane level. NAGMA, we noted, has began advocacy on preparedness, and I compliment them for that. 2024, bad for us. I mean, we're still reeling from it. Carriacou, northern agricultural sector. It's scary.
Well, I don't think the trajectory in hurricanes in our region will change in a hurry. In other words, we'll get above average, sometime below average, but one is bad.
Yeah.
So whether it's high or low, we just have to prepare all kind of insurance now to protect the country and to protect people. So you have to do as much as you can mitigate, but we can interfere with climate change too. We know what's
and them
happening.
insurance policies keep going up, Chris.
Yeah, there's nothing about that. We're vulnerable. That's one of the risks that we are open to in these territories.
It ain't easy for our people.
We just have to pay attention and get ready for whatever may come.
Chris, other politics here. Last newspaper we saw an issue. The NNP caretaker candidate, Amanda Japal George, she is also a youth parliamentarian. But the information seemed to be coming out that the clerk of parliament was directed to write to her because under the rules, they must be non-partisan, and therefore this has become an issue. I don't know where it's going or what's going to happen, but is that an issue really?
Well,
I don't know.
I suppose it will be because there is an agreement that once you are a youth parliamentarian, you don't involve in partisan politics. And she seemed to be been appointed a caretaker for a particular constituency in St. Andrews.
Right, yeah.
So I suppose a decision has to be made whether or not she's going to give one for the next. But I am told that she was a young lady with great potential.
Yeah.
As a young person.
Okay.
Getting into politics, and a female at that. So it's left to be seen what the decisions will come out based on the clerk's intervention.
Okay. Yeah. Last week we spoke about what's happening in California. That's at the Comfort Junction, Chris. We noticed some.
Sure, you're passionate about that. I'm passionate about this one.
What's happening down there? What have you noticed?
We have this site opposite the road to go in Comfort.
Yeah.
Right, on the California road.
Yeah.
They dumped a set of mud and stone and so on there.
Yeah.
In the last week. Then they leveled it. They pushed it back to the river course. And now, this weekend, they had tents erected. They had big SL trucks and container trucks, 40-foot line up on the area and causing congestion and traffic until people couldn't move, and you had to make different roads. I mean, Grenadians are becoming very lawless. And this is
a government initiative or this is a private?
It's private people are there.
Private people that's there.
You understand? The guy was there before, and now he has expanded his operation significantly with his
so physical planning or the planning authority.
The question is, where is PPA? Where is the police? Where is the traffic department of the RGPL? And I don't understand how we could behave so lawless in the country and nobody says a word about it. And this coming at a season where we get into rainy season. If you back up the river course, this river has its water coming as far up as Mardi Gras. Coming down
up
to
the mountains.
Montjaloux, St. Paul's, and ends up.
There's a lot of water.
A lot of water that's come. If you block the river course, it's going to have significant flooding. There's guys who have their homes in the area. Then the Fort Judy Bridge is a kind of flat bridge. It has traditionally flooded before. what is it that we're doing in the country that nobody wants to see? And then when these things happen and we get these major floods, then we're looking to see how we can fix it. Why allow this thing to happen where the guy has pushed back and reclaimed land, essentially?
Yeah.
With what he has done there to put up his private enterprise. And the question has to be asked, where is the authorities in this issue? Right? We have one a little lower down at I talk about the purple structure. You understand? That creates traffic congestion right at the entrance of the Fort Judy Gap. I know we had this guy a little higher up, about 200 meters away. And then we have opposite him,
yeah, Chris, this is in keeping with all over there. You have roadside mechanic shop, they're blocking the street, double parking, it's like...
Well, we have PPA who came out and said, listen, they're going to clamp down on these things because of the congestion it's causing and selling alcoholic drinks illegally. I mean...
It's not happening.
And then when we say we lawless, we just get vexed, but we lawless.
Chris, viewers, we're going to take a short break here. When we come back, our special guest this evening is Trevor Thompson. And of course, as I said earlier, he is a sustainable soil management specialist. He'll be joining us for a conversation. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for life and allied laboratories. See our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. And allied laboratories, we're taking care of Grenada.
Hello, my name is Ethan Sam. I am your two-time character medalist, and I'll be participating at the Classic Lightning Communal Invitational, May 17 and 18 at the Crayon James National Stadium. See you there.
Hey parents, we all know children don't come with manuals, but you can step up your parenting game. Join the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs in collaboration with the Grenada National Council of the Disabled for an incredible series of community engagement. Discover essential topics like child abuse prevention, understanding discipline versus punishment, building healthy relationships, mastering parenting in the electronic era. Catch us in your community nightly from 6 to 8, starting in the community of River Sally on Monday, May 12th, at the River Sally Government School, Tuesday, May 13th, at the Mount Horn Community Center, Wednesday, May 14th, at the Willis Community Center, on Monday, May 19th, the Anglican Government School in the community of St. John, and in the community on St. David on Tuesday, May 20th, at the Ponderosa School. Enhance your parenting skills and create a brighter future for your children. Join us and step up today. Brought to you by the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for life and allied laboratories. See our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. Fit for life and allied laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
Hello, my name is Ethan Sam. I am your two-time character medalist, and I'll be participating at the Classic Lightning Communal Invitational, May 17 and 18 at the Crown James National Stadium. See you there.
Hey parents! We all know children don't come with manuals, but you can step up your parenting game. Join the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs in collaboration with the Grenada National Council of the Disabled for an incredible series of community engagement. Discover essential topics like child abuse prevention, understanding discipline versus punishment, building healthy relationships, mastering parenting in the electronic era. Catch us in your community nightly from 6 to 8, starting in the community of River Sally on Monday, May 12th, at the River Sally Government School, Tuesday, May 13th, at the Mount Horn Community Center, Wednesday, May 14th, at the Willis Community Center, on Monday, May 19th, the Anglican Government School in the community of St. John, and in the community on St. David on Tuesday, May 20th, at the Ponderosa School. Enhance your parenting skills and create a brighter future for your children. Join us and step up today. Brought to you by the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs.
Welcome back, viewers, to MTV Community Forum. Our special guest this evening, as mentioned earlier, is Trevor Thompson. Trevor is Mr. Thompson, that is. He has served over 38 years in the Ministry of Agriculture. He is a former Chief Agricultural Officer and Chief Land Use Officer. Also served as a climate change negotiator for Grenada on behalf of Grenada. He's also was the chair of GWC, but currently, which is most important, he's a project manager for CSID Soil Care Phase 1 project. This is a regional project, and he'll tell us about this project. Trevor, welcome to Community Forum. You're no stranger to a lot of us. I, for once, have worked with you. I know the quality of your work in the Ministry of Agriculture over the years, your dedication, and your service to the country. And we're very proud of you and very pleased that you're able to come here today and talk about a very important subject, and that is particularly of sustainable soil management, because it has implications to climate change, food security, biodiversity, so many things. It's integrated into everything, our lives. So there is something that says soil is life, water is life, And soil is the foundation of life. As we said, it feeds us, it filters water, supports biodiversity, underpins our ecosystem. Yet in Grenada, soil continues to degrade due to what I believe is the unsustainable practices, deforestation, and the impact of climate change. Without a clear national land use policy, to what extent can we secure our food and water system for future generations? So, Mr. Thompson, you have decades of experience in the Ministry of Agriculture and at the regional level. Why does Grenada not yet have a comprehensive land use policy? And what, in your view, are the consequences of this gap for our environment, agriculture, and national development?
Well, first let me say thank you very much for inviting me to the program. I've always watched it, but this is the first time I've ever been on the program. I want to thank your host also, Mr. Diali, for the warm welcome. And to the audience, to the listeners, to the viewers, it's a pleasure to be here and to share a little bit. Not claiming to know it all, but at least to give someone from experience.
Yes.
As you said, I'm presently working with the PISLM, which is the Partnership Initiative for Sustainable.
That's an FAO project?
FAO is the partner with us. PISLM is the executing agency. FAO is the implementing entity.
Okay.
All right. We have it's PISLM, as we acronym short is regional intergovernmental organization. In fact, in April last year, the agreement was signed to establish it as an IGO.
Yeah.
And in June this year, the Grenada will be the host for this IGO.
Okay.
It sits under CARICOM. Quoted, it was established by a quoted a decision in 2008. And it's going to be the first regional IGO that's going to be based in Grenada, which is significant.
Yeah.
It's historical, really. We don't have, like the other countries where you have OECS in St. Lucia, you have PISLM is going to be based in
Grenada. Be based in Grenada.
Right?
Okay.
So we're just finalizing the modalities for establishing it as an IGO.
Okay.
And it's implementing the what we call the CSIDS, Soil Care Initiative, which is the Caribbean and Small Island Developing States project that is focused mainly on addressing the issue of land degradation, implementing the UNCCD Convention on Desertification. But the focus of this project is sustainable land management, sustainable soil management, and reversing land degradation in terms of the practices that is contributing towards low productivity, soil erosion, etc. The issue of policy. In this project, we support in some countries. Belize have just reviewed the national land policy to bring it more in line with addressing those issues of soil, land management, and land use, and also to integrate into it the targets that the country has set to reduce land degradation by 2030.
But is Grenada doing this too? Is Grenada?
Grenada has a policy that was approved in 2017.
Approved at what level?
At cabinet level.
Cabinet, yeah.
And the draft legislation was completed in early 2022. Went already through all the rigors of review by legal department, etc., and to go to parliament.
So why it's not policy?
It was brought back for review, and I'm not clear on the status of it, where it sits in terms of on the level of.
Well, can your project ask these questions though, and articulate, advocate for?
What has happened is Grenada was one of the first countries to implement the model for addressing land degradation neutrality, and as part of that, the country had to set certain targets to reduce land degradation, meaning to take lands that are marginal or lands that are degraded and put it back into production to help reverse this whole issue that we've seen with a lot of abandoned lands, a lot of lands being changed from one use to the other without the proper processes, and they result in negative impacts on the environment.
Well, what is your assessment of Grenada's current soil health?
I would say in 2023, we did a national soil sampling survey where we collected over 120 samples from the country. That was then sent off to the University of the West Indies to be analyzed. And we did that for all the other countries that's in the project, Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Belize, Jamaica, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, St. Lucia. Right? Haiti is the only one left to be completed in this process. But from the analysis, we've seen that there are some challenges with the issue of soil fertility and soil health in Grenada. And part of it is the issue of the overuse of certain chemical fertilizers, right? That is contributing to some toxic levels of some things. So it is imperative right now that any conversation on agricultural productivity, food security, you must go to your soils data. You should start there, because that is what you use as a basis to know what you should do, when you should do it, and how much of you should do.
What's the good news there? Because we know that Grenada, we never had soil testing facilities. We're guessing. We don't know what fertilizers to apply. What is it? Well, but the bigger question, if the trends continue, if the practice continue, what is our soils going to look like in 10 to 20 years?
It will have an impact on some of the major export crops, cocoa, nutmeg productivity. and of course on vegetables. In terms of the quality, what we have found out is that poor gut is a major factor now in the Caribbean. Meaning people are consuming a lot of the vegetables, etc., but the quality in terms of the nutrition value is very low.
Soil issues. Yeah.
Soil issues. It's directly linked to your
soil issues.
In fact, in the past, it was a documented fact that based on where you produce certain crops, you could actually taste the nutrition, the nutrients in it. That is no.
Any geographical area, regions in Grenada are greater affected in terms of poor soil conditions than others, you would say?
The coastal belt where we do a lot of vegetable production,
yeah.
That's we've seen an increase in some toxic levels of some of the minerals, and we have some concern with pH also, which of course affects your nitrogen and all of that.
Yeah.
How it fits in the soil.
You I mean, as a specialist kind of scientist, almost you've worked there all your life. The absence of a land use policy. We are seeing large blocks of our land, and we are a small island. First of all, with limitation. And when I say island, I mean I'm counting Carriacou also. Yeah. In Carriacou, we've seen prime agricultural land without any EIA or feasibility become housing. A minister, an individual decides that's a nice area, we occupy it. In Grenada, we want to build a new hospital. Look, prime agricultural land, we're going to take 100 acres there or 90 acres there, and we're going to put a hospital. It doesn't matter. Or, it seems loose to me, Trevor. Do you see that? I mean, what's the danger here?
I think we have learned. There were two lessons that we learned that I think we are paying attention to. One was when Hurricane Ivan struck Grenada. We quickly realized that we had no food in terms of agricultural products to consume. So we depended on St. Vincent for a large portion of that. Luckily for us, we were in the process of implementing the irrigation program, right? So that we were able to quickly recover. In fact, the equipment was not damaged, etc. So we were able to deploy that and we saw agricultural production came back quickly after Ivan, right? Remember, we were importing everything from St. Vincent.
That's correct.
Right? Breadfruit, yams, sweet potatoes, you name it, coconuts, everything, right? All the provisions. Then COVID taught us that if you're not self-sufficient in basic food, you're going to have some serious challenges. And of course, we just recently went through that whole tariff fiasco where everybody was beginning to panic again and they convened meetings to say, hey, so it tells us that, listen, in fact, when you look at the tigers in Asia, etc., the developing economies, they made a strategic decision that for no matter how much rice we could import or how much food we could import, we will produce at least 50% minimum of that in our country. So Malaysia could depend on Vietnam for rice or Thailand. But it says, no, we will depend on our own local production, at least minimum 50% for that production. Because we cannot allow our food security to be dependent on another nation. Now, they have borders they could drive rice across. We are an island. If the ships can come, what will happen to us? The reality is we could face starvation.
Yeah, and we don't have...
Could you say that again? I missed that, Trevor.
That's the reality.
What was that reality? Say that again.
We could face starvation if there's a serious crisis.
Grenada.
Yes, because we do not have any large tracts of any staple crops. We don't have no cassavas. We don't have 10 or 15 acres of cassavas. Sweet potatoes, yams. We don't. That's a reality.
But aren't you concerned now, though, that because of how we, in the absence of a land use policy, where everybody do what they want, their own thing, there's no designation for agriculture, for housing, for industries. So we're vulnerable now in that. It's like, how are we going to be able to allocate these? I understand the point you're making in that we need to allocate a certain acreage for certain production purposes. If you don't have that,
and that has to be a strong decision. The state has to lead it. Now, there is a fallacy in the mind of a lot of people that government is a facilitator.
Yes.
Government is not an implementer of projects.
Yeah.
They provided the policies and the playing field for people to invest in those areas. Yeah. I heard while you were talking there about the issue of agricultural projects.
Yeah.
Agriculture is a business.
Yes.
It's not a project. You cannot manage it as a project, right? And in that business model, you have to give room for what I would call a grace period, because when you plant a crop, you need a certain period of time before it starts production. So in your financial model, you must say we cannot immediately start collecting revenue from,
too much vulnerability,
right? Yeah. So you give a grace period. We did that with the irrigation program, and farmers will be repaying their borrowings. Where you give them a 1 year grace period, the equipment is installed, you get your farm into production, etc., and then you start paying back. So what the farmers are able to pay back? In 1 year, 2 years, they pay back $20,000, $40,000 because the
production
went up, right?
But Trevor, isn't it also because of the nature of agriculture, and we see it in developing countries, whether it's the US, throughout Europe, that this sector is subsidized by the state, recognizing the vulnerability. In fact, when there are bad years, farmers are compensated fully.
Because the risk is, I always
so I agree with you as a business, but I know you and Chris in particular is going to take a hard line on this and say, look, it's a business, I'm not so sure about these subsidies.
Okay. When you look at the statistics, out of every 100 or 200 loans an entity gave in a year, how much of it is agriculture? Even to the bank that is supposed to be focused on
the development bank. The last numbers I had, it was less than 3%.
Right? Mm-hmm. So yes, we know the risk is high, etc. But still, there should be some avenue provided there to facilitate that, right? Because the bottom line is you see that agriculture has money in it. Yeah. Look at the prices of agricultural commodities when you go to the market.
Let me say something. That I don't think none of us in Grenada or elsewhere in the region don't understand the need to have food. Mm-hmm. As you say, the hurricanes we experienced had it glaring. But if governments do not put policies in place, you just talk about Belize and the land use and review, we don't have one. We have one in writing on paper, but we don't have political will, in my view, to say this area is designated for this area is housing, this area is industrial development. And unless we do that, we ain't making no sense in food security. Absolutely no sense. If we had to depend on Guyana for 25-25, and that ain't work, how we handle the issue of food security, right? So if I hear you and I appreciate the science, and the science, I always argue here that science must be brought together with agricultural policies and operations. So for example, soil testing. What is the best soil acidity, pH? What is the things we use and how we get it back up? And now climate change challenging us even harder with salt and seawater levels rising and bringing in salt into fertile land on the coastal regions.
Sahara does. We don't know the impact of it on
That's right. And we know we have sarcasm giving us stress. Yeah. Right? So the point is, where is our Ministry of Health? You have been there for many years. In terms of articulating for this country, we have a 2035 strat plan for the country. We talk a lot about agriculture, but where is, every time we have a budget, in my view, agriculture gets the pennies.
It drops.
It drops. And strategically, you're not hearing, as you through this project is doing, where is our Ministry of Agriculture in all of this?
Well, what from my little research, right? Over the years, we've done a lot of studies, etc., on the issue of value chain and this and all of that. Right. Millions of dollars have gone into that. But very little money went into actually beginning at the basis, looking at your soils, the soil health, and then developing your land capability and land suitability maps. So as part of this project, what we are going to do is we want to, establish a Caribbean Soil Information System, where the soil information from all the countries are going to be hosted in one database. And the phase 2 of the project, we'll do all the 14 CARICOM countries. So we'll have all the soil information of all those. And then out of that will come a decision support system, which is another layer, right? That will take all of the climate parameters, ecological parameters, etc., and convert it with the soil to tell you where are the best places to do. So but of course you need the policy to say, we endorse this, we support this, and we will implement it.
Not only that, the action plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Move it from the paper
that's what
to
I was
the field.
coming to, yes.
You understand? Because if I'm a businessman that want to invest in agriculture right now, and I want to do vegetable, for example, I want to bring in soil and put it in a greenhouse. Because that's the only way I'll be able to control my production capability, ensure quality, and ensure pesticide control and all of that. So I using the science, I building my greenhouses and I put in soil.
Well, what we have done also in this project, that's why I said this project was really transformational. We tested your soil, but we also provided each country, we brought their labs up to a tier 1, where they're able to do the basics.
Will it be affordable for the farmers?
It will be, when we then trained the officers in each country to know how to take a sample, how to prepare the sample, and how to get the sample analyzed. Right? And we went further to that. We did a training in December, where we did standard lab operating procedures, how to have your standards, etc., in your lab, and also how to interpret your results from your soil sampling.
Right.
Present it in language that the farmer can
understand. The farmer can react to, respond to.
Right? Bring to level, say, okay, on this type of soil, you apply this amount of nitrogen, phosphorus.
Exactly.
Right? So we did that. But one of the challenges I see with Grenada is human resource. Right? One, we need to set up, right now the equipment was provided to the produce chemist lab, right? The human capacity there is limited. So government needs to make a decision. Hey, we will establish a soils lab. We will put 2 or 3 persons in there. You don't need plenty.
So you have the equipment here.
You have the equipment.
Facilities are
right?
Project supporting
right?
it.
And then mandate now the extension and agronomy division that going forward samples must be taken from every
Is there
farm.
a timeline for this to happen, Trevor?
Coming to you on an issue.
The project can't make that decision, but we could advise that that's the way to go. We have
still the government will.
Right? And I believe we've seen some movement on that in the ministry.
Very
right?
good.
Because I think the officers understand the importance of this. You spoke about the 25 by 25 CARICOM.
Yeah.
It was never designed that any country should produce food to feed the others. I was shocked when I heard.
So you don't like the Guyana?
No, was not the intent of the 25 by 25.
No.
Each country, and I worked on that for Grenada, was supposed to provide a list of the priority crops, how much acreage presently in production, and how much acreage you want to reach by 25 by 25.
So we have
and the resources are supposed to be provided to help the countries do that.
So we halfway in 2025. Where are we with this? Because you have knowledge of this.
CARICOM has to go back to the drawing.
No. Grenada I'm talking about. Where are we with reducing our food import bill? Because that's what it means. 2025, Caribbean 25, they would reduce their food import by 25%. Ours is going up.
Right.
It's not going down.
I'm not seeing the analysis that was done in terms of where I know there was discussion on it in the last quartet, etc. And even CARICOM heads, but I'm not sure where we are with it.
Byron, you don't have to go to no analysis. If you go to the supermarkets, as I know you do, most of the imports of vegetables from the US, not Guyana, not in the region. All we grown provision is from St. Vincent, potato, yams, and so on. So we're not dashing and things that grow here naturally in the Belvedere belt still can't supply because the production is an issue.
We have a question for Trevor, because you're in the ministry for over 35 years, so you know how this works. Maybe you can tell us how it works. The question of managing food imports, where there are local supplies, how does that work? How does a supermarket, a firm, get permission to import, let's be real, citrus, for example, when there's local supply, and you go to the supermarket, the purchasing agents, they tell you, sorry, we have, but they have containers load of imported ones. and they aren't buying yours.
And from extra,
so how does
extra regional sources.
Exactly.
No,
who gives them?
No,
how does it get,
based on the agreements we have, right, trade agreements, etc., which is supposed to work closely with the ministry, based on the legislations that are there in terms of for pest and disease, for phytosanitary, etc. These are all designed as mechanisms to have control over.
It goes through Marketing Board as one of the agencies,
right?
And then it goes to Ministry of Agriculture to get the license if Marketing Board recommends.
No.
What is the situation with local versus import?
So what is supposed to happen is...
That's the process.
What is supposed to happen, and I could tell you that there are countries, and I will speak that publicly, who flaunt those and businesses. What they do basically is that they order the stuff is either on the way or on the port, and then they apply for.
Correct.
What is supposed to happen is that an application is supposed to be made way in advance. So when I was in the ministry, one company tried to do that with eggs, and we say, red line. We cannot allow that.
So you need firm policies.
We will not permit you to just come and tell us you have a container egg on the boat. That's
the
total
regs.
disrespect for the state.
Absolutely.
We have the regs, we have
And
the regs.
There is the rules.
And for the local egg producers.
Right, whether it's eggs or poultry, whatever.
We have plenty of laws in the country. The police
is enforcing it.
Is enforcing it.
Right, and you enforce it by having data to say we know we have 100,000 eggs ready for market.
Yeah.
So you telling us you want to import 50,000 eggs? Red line.
Right now, local chicken is scarce, right? And we have, so we're going back to the old imports that we think, but we have a lot of chicken that we could do here. Yeah. But again,
and we have facilities.
Again, but I want to touch an issue on labor. One of the biggest challenges in agriculture is labor. Every one of our farmers will complain, and then we just had a new minimum wage pass that increased the cost of labor for agricultural workers. I have no problem with that if that is the case. The point is, can we get people to work? We can't. And that is a big problem.
Well,
and I have said openly, sorry Trevor, I have said openly, I will ask your thoughts on this. Bringing people from the outside who are willing to work. Get rid of this work permit stupidness. And bringing people, because we need our farms to be. You talk about a large tract of acreage under production. How are we going to do it with 5 people? They are coming to work 7 o'clock and by 10 they're done.
Well, the first thing you have to begin by seeing agriculture as a skill, the workers as a skill.
Yes.
Because you want skilled workers on your farm. Yes. But we, in our mind, our perception, we still see an agricultural worker as a poor, uneducated man with a some dirty clothes on him going on. You understand? But the guys who work on farms, they are skilled to know how to prune a tree.
That's correct.
You know, to know when to fertilize.
But
you need knowledge.
We drive a $200,000 pickup to the land and we come out with a cutlass and a water boots.
Yeah.
No sort of technology equipment how to till and I mean.
So in terms of one, you must see it as a skill, and you pay your workers to suit.
Yeah.
Right? That's one that has to be done. And 2, we've always had the movement of workers in the region.
Always.
Right?
And criminals will move whether they want or not.
So it's not, well, you have criminals moving from every
That's the point.
Place, right?
So these things that we put in to prevent that.
If you could find workers in other places and you could bring them in, of course, you have to do it through the right processes. But it's something that should be considered, because you can't increase productivity without labor, and affordable labor at that. That's a basic of economics.
But one of the things we see, of course, we are a tropical climate, steep slopes. It means that without protective ground cover or terracing, soil is easily washed away, especially after storms. But how much soil is Grenada currently losing to erosion annually? And is this loss being replaced naturally, and at what rate? Because when it rains, because the rivers, you see the impact. I mean, are we able to quantify this?
Well, some of the impact is not only agriculture, right? Some of it is from construction.
Yes.
Right, where we have a lot of, backfilling, dumping, etc. in rivers, etc. And of course, when they clear the lands, it's left exposed.
They cut down every tree.
Every tree, nothing is left, and I think
so that's
there are some types of rules with that is concerned in terms of land clearing, all of that. Buffers along rivers. There's legislation that exists from since in the 20s on those things. Buffer, riparian zones, and those kind of things. It's there in the books, because the old guys and them understood. But it's one is what you realize that a lot of the current staff is not aware of it because they don't go back and research those things and see what does the law say on this. Somebody come to an idea. What does the law say on this? What is the policy on this? Right? So you have those, but there is a substantial to calculate the tonnage of soil that is lost. It's a process. It has to be done as a research. Right? But we know based on the land degradation neutrality study that was done. We know it's substantial. Right? We're losing a lot of topsoil.
You can see
and good fertile soil.
Yeah. So I tell you, we import soil just now.
Well, I mean, what I would call covered agriculture, protected agriculture,
like tree crops in particular.
Is a measure that you could use to increase, but that has to focus on specific crops.
But one particular area, Trevor, for example, is, and that's the facts. According to Solid Waste, they were here, Management Authority. They say up to 40% of the waste sent to Perseverance landfill is organic and biodegradable. Mostly food and yard waste that could be composted and tree crops. But do you see a missed opportunity in not composting organic waste to use back in agriculture or home gardening? Well, what systems?
This project, that composting is a major part of it. To teach soil management on the farm is going to be one of the components, and composting is one of the right major. Steve Maxime is actually our climate smart agricultural expert. And is pushing those kinds of policies and practices so that we could help to reduce the use of chemical fertilizer, because we know organic matter is extremely important for crop health, of soil health. We also is focusing on use of some of our traditional methods for soil conservation, like plan to use a lot of vetiver grass, right? We've started looking at the issue of the impact of blue maho that has become an invasive species. It was brought in here after Hurricane Janet to help stabilize and to reduce erosion, but blue maho is an invasive now. Wherever a seed fall, it grows. So it has proliferated in a lot of our forests, and it's a high consumer of water. Right, it takes a lot of moisture out of the soil.
Interesting,
So that's why above some of Nawasa's treatment plants, like in Les Avocats, where we did a small research to see where we removed a lot of the blue maho and we're replanting with indigenous species.
A lot of people like blue maho for furniture, so you need to probably promote it.
Well, of course.
And cut down them trees.
Of course, manage it. It has to be managed.
What are the other significant outcomes from the project?
One is I spoke about the DSS, Decision Support System, the CASIS, the Soil Information System. What we have also done is we have established a number of working groups that is going to focus on soil management across the region. Strengthening the labs, the soil labs in all of those countries. In fact, when we convened a meeting with the heads of labs, that was the first time they ever met and knew one another physically. Imagine that. You have people in labs and they have never met before, never had a conversation. So we've established a grouping so that they could communicate and focus on the research. What needs to be done? What equipment we need? Where we need to invest money.
So my question to you is what's really giving you hope, Trevor?
Hold on, before you go there, I want to ask Trevor another question. The impact of climate change, as you see it, I commend the project for taking a very scientific approach. But how are you guys looking at the impact of climate change on soil, on agriculture in general, in food production, from 2 points of view, really and truly, apart from soil condition? But what about the torrential downpour of rain that we see now? And then the droughts.
Well, phase 2 of the project is going to focus. There's going to be a whole component focusing on drought and floods and the impacts on
what's the timing for phase 2?
Phase 2, we hope that should roll out early next year.
Okay.
Right. So while phase 1 is wrapping up, it will start operating.
And the follow-up question to that is, what is the education plan for our farmers? Because this is going to require our farmers to take a different approach to what they do, how they do, and educate them. Is there educational training plan?
There's under component 5. There's a major component to give a lot of short-term capacity building opportunities for farmers and also for tertiary levels, like the agricultural farm school here, so to strengthen its programs. So there's going to be a major program to focus on soils, land management, soil management, crop, etc. And using some of the technology. There's going to be a knowledge hub created in phase 1 that's going to be expanded in phase 2, where all of the information on soils and land management is housed. And not only that, we give 5 scholarships at top to PhD level to 5 Caribbean nationals. 1 Grenadian benefited to focus on soils.
Because all of us have smartphones. So to access the database on the field.
In your phone.
On your field. And we have to train. So and that's where we have to bring it.
The soils information is going to be available as an app on your phone.
Okay.
So a farmer could actually go and see what's...
The demographic in Grenada is that the farmers' average age is in the 50s and 60s.
Well, it's coming down, from what I'm seeing now, and based on the interest I'm seeing, a lot of young people getting into farming because they realize it has potential. There's a career there. There's a career.
A livelihood.
Yeah. I mean, I want to put it more than a livelihood, because with the perception we have with livelihood is people are on the margins of survivability. You're just barely surviving.
Your livelihood is your...
So the focus was on single mothers, owning a livelihood. Just to keep them feeding their families, etc. But you could have a good life in agriculture. I mean, I know guys going to buy a van cash.
Of course.
And pick up cash.
Developing countries in the world, their farming core become millionaires because they don't move and they invest. And they invest in the generations.
So we're coming down to
I think for Grenada and the Caribbean, I think one of the weaknesses among the farmers is farmers' organization.
Yeah.
We don't have strong. The few NIFO, Northeast Farmers Organization, was one of the strongest, and you could see the impact.
You can see the impact,
right? And I don't know. Sometimes I think they're not encouraged because people see them as a threat. You know, they could have influence. But you want strong farmers' organizations.
More collective approach.
They can advocate together for their own benefits.
Is the project taking any look at that part of it?
I can't say that
No.
Nutmeg Association and them have given us any hope in that farmers' organization.
Trevor, we come into a close, but if you're going to speak to the average Grenadian farmer, every Grenadian farmer and gardener farmer directly, what is the single most important thing you're going to tell them about our soil today?
I would say, we talk a lot about land, but soil is the basis of land. Know your soils. Get your soils tested. That is where you will begin to make very strategic decisions as to what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it. That's extremely important. Once you know that, once you know the state of your soil, the soil health, you could really begin to plan and expand your farm itself.
Yeah, and be consistent.
Because on one farm you could have different fertility levels, you could have different soil types sometimes. On one, because the soil boundaries could pass through your farm. And you've been seeing something on your farm and saying, why is it in it? But maybe it's 2 different soils. Texture, color, depth, etc. So it's important for you to check with your ministry, ask them they have equipment. Come and take a sample and give me the results and the recommendations.
That's an important thing.
Yeah, we really appreciate your presence here, Trevor. Tonight.
We didn't touch extension officers, but there's another area.
But we're really proud of you, Trevor. I mean, bringing this level of expertise to the region, actually. And we're really hopeful for this project, given the importance of it and its focus.
It creates hope.
And particularly as it deals with, as you mentioned, the whole question of our food security, which is our being, our life. Thank you very much, Trevor, for coming.
Pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you, my brother.
Viewers, that's all the time we have. We want to thank you for being with us at the MTV Community Forum. We thank our technical staff and all. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.
Bailey's Funeral Home. We are always ready to respond to your call.
And we are here, whether you have a question or need comforting words.
We help to make what is usually a difficult time less challenging for you and your family.
By taking care of your loved ones, treating them with honor, dignity, and respect as we would our own family.
We assist you in making all the necessary arrangements for that final goodbye and help you along the way.
We are committed to you, providing you with the best service, quality products at the lowest prices.
We stand with you from beginning to end as a pillar of strength, comfort, and support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for choosing Bailey's Funeral Home, the perfect tribute any family can afford.